So thank you very much, everyone. This is like the end of the Digital Hollywood ride for the week. Thank you very much for coming here. We have some interesting panelists today. My name is Cynthia Lieberman. I am a content marketer and a social media marketer, and I'm also an author. My partner, Amanda Russell, you may have seen her earlier today, and I are creating the Influencer Code, which is a brand destination for a marketing hub for the business of influencers. We're also co-writing a book that will be out next year, and I have been given the fortunate responsibility of moderating this panel. And so much has been said throughout this week about influencers and how they got here and what they're doing. We're going to try to mix this up a little bit and give you some information about multi-channel networks and about how just the things that they get asked and how they handle certain situations. But before we do that, I'm going to start and let Alex, you can talk to them about a little bit about your journey, introduce yourself, and then we'll just go down and let everybody just say a few words about themselves. So Alex Hager, Take it away.
Hey guys, my name's Alex. I'm a pop artist and social media influencer based here in LA. I'm 22, and my kind of journey here has kind of changed throughout the years. I mean, music has definitely been my focus as of now. Started out in the industry, kind of modeling, acting, web dev, kind of on every side of the spectrum. But I've kind of started to make my focus a little bit more linear over time. Now I work with brands, have the joy of working with some companies like Tiny Sponsor, and yeah, hopefully we can share some knowledge, have a conversation. And I'm joined with...
Hi, I'm Rod.
And I'm Vince.
We're a self-deprecating romantic pop rock duo, RKVC. We're a band, we're songwriters, and we suck at most everything else, but we're figuring out YouTube right now.
He's the other half. And this is Jenna.
Hi, I'm Jana Shaps. I am an influencer marketing and social media director for a PR firm. I was brought in to build out their influencer and social, and I'm super stoked to hear more about Tiny Sponsor and, be on this panel, so thank you.
And one of the reasons that Jana is on this panel, which gives it a little bit different flavor, is in a way, influencers are publicists in their own way because they're a public voice, often and a brand voice, but somebody promotes them too. And also just hearing about some of the things that have to do with that. She has a lot of experience in this field when it's a fairly new field, so thank you. And then of course we have Mike, who you might already know.
Mike Prasad, I'm a founder of Tiny Sponsor, and what you might not know is I was actually also on the content creation side. I ran a gaming channel on YouTube and also ran Kogi Barbecue, which was the first social media food truck about a decade ago, which started what everyone now knows as a social media food truck. So kind of been on both sides of the creator side. I've been on the agency side. I ran an agency for about 10 years. And then now on the platform side. So, well, all sides of the table.
And in full disclosure, it just happens that he's worked with not with Jana, with these other influencers, helping them with their careers. And this is Micro-Influencer Day, but there's a lot of different variations of even what that means. So one of the things I was asking them is like, what could we give you that might be unique, different than what most people have heard? But it's always, there's never been a better time to tell stories than there is now in this participatory culture. And so it's kind of interesting to hear what people have been through. And one of the first questions I asked, and I'm going to start with you guys, and then I'm going to have Alex step in, and then you guys back up because it was kind of funny. I asked you, when you're on the street, somebody comes up to you and they say, what is the most common questions that you get asked? They think they know you. What's the first thing that they ask you?
How much money do you make?
Yeah.
Right? So when they ask you that question, like Alex said to me when we were talking about this earlier, well, in what context is how much money do you make? What does that mean? Are you talking about monetization from the deal? Or so first tell us what you tell your fans and how you address that, and then I'll let you guys chime in on that.
The short version is we don't really address it because it's kind of like it's like talking about salaries with anybody. But the long answer is there could be like a week or month-long convention just about that. Like how people make money on social media and everything. Because the closest thing we've come to explaining is on our channel we have a video called Nobody Talks About the Middle. And where like a regular 9 to 5 or something would have like a faucet for income, like you work, you get money, you don't get money. Ours is more like we have a bucket and it's raining. And so we're just running in circles trying to collect as much rain to fill the bucket as possible. It's probably like the clearest answer that we could get, you know.
It's a little bit of organized chaos.
Oh yeah, because we're still definitely like we are not near making it, but we're trying. Like we're on our way, you know. Hopefully.
Well, you know, so Alex, you have because you're a musician and popularity is part of it, social popularity, social media popularity, but you also have especially with, at your age, you have a lot of marketing experience and you actually help other people even do it. So here we've got these guys who are, you know, tiny sponsors help them trampoline. How do you feel about that question? Because you have a complex answer, kind of.
Well, I think it really depends on what your part is in the industry and especially the platform that you happen to dominate on. So Instagram, I think to a lot of people is a little bit more personal and there's a little bit more ego involved with it, where you have like a lot of lifestyle people, whereas YouTube, I feel like you're often more pursuing something. So like they have a very identifiable brand image, and I think YouTube, it's no stranger that a lot of people know about the capitalization on YouTube with AdSense and brand deals. So I think that most people, the thought of money is really going to pop into their head when somebody drops the word YouTube. But with Instagram, it's a little bit more conversational and a little bit less, I think, about capitalization to the average person. So I think that, like...
But do you feel that the best compensation comes from a brand sponsorship and collaboration, or is it from a percentage of views, like in YouTube? Like, what is the combination,
I think from like a platform standpoint, it's more obvious on YouTube, because I mean, you have people like PewDiePie, Logan Paul making well over $10 million a year, and you're probably not going to find an Instagram model usually making that as often. So I think the more obvious choice would be YouTube, but it's just the fact that YouTube, I think, has that association more so, whereas you're forced to have brand deals through Instagram, whereas YouTube, you have the flexibility to say, all right, well, I can prioritize AdSense content, or I could be really PG and really go for that brand deal. But I mean, that kind of is the same kind of thing.
A lot of it depends on content and context.
So I think that if you really pride yourself on being a YouTuber, that's going to be a more common question, where I don't think I've actually had anybody come up to me at VidCon, TanaCon, anything like that, and ask me how much money I make.
You survived TanaCon?
I performed at TanaCon.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, before everybody freaked out. But yeah, I think it's really a platform difference. To me, it's going to be, oh, how many streams do you have? How many followers do you have? And less about, oh, how much do you make monthly through Instagram? It's just not a question that I hear very often, at least directed towards me.
So, did you want to say something, Mike?
Every platform is a different monetization capacity and method, right? So, like with Instagram, you're seeing a higher value per audience type of scenario in general than YouTube. But then YouTube, okay, let me repeat that.
A higher value to who? A higher value to who?
Yeah, so direct sponsorship on Instagram is generally going to be a higher value per average view, average audience than AdSense on YouTube. Like AdSense on YouTube is, you can get the views on the platform, but the payout, the way they value the audience is incredibly low. You look at like PewDiePie, right? It was like, what was that, 50 or some stupid millions and millions of
63 million or something, yeah.
Followers. If a TV show had that many viewers,
oh man,
it would be worth massively more than what PewDiePie makes in his entire career per year. And that's kind of the issue, right? Where when you go direct sponsorship on YouTube or Instagram, you're getting a much higher return. So the money-making thing is very reliant on the platform and the nature of the content. But generally speaking, like residual ads, so remnant inventory, CPM, like AdSense is going to be much lower than what the creator's actually worth.
So you really kind of, I mean, what I'm hearing, and John, because I know you've done this like with MTV and some other large brands, but so you have to kind of have an aggregate of different revenue streams in order to really, and then you have to live up to the promise, which is not always possible because brands aren't always realistic. So maybe you could talk about some examples of that with some of the projects you've worked on.
Sure. So I've worked on budgets from 10,000 to the 100,000s, and when you're evaluating a campaign, you also have to take into consideration an influencer's time and the content that they are going to produce. So, when you think about the return on YouTube, a lot goes into that. So if someone from a brand side is like, I don't want to pay this YouTube influencer $25,000 for 5 minutes, well, it's not just 5 minutes, right? That's just what they've cut and put together for you. I mean, that could be hours and hours and hours of time and ideation and editing that goes into that. So another perspective, and from, again, the brand side, is the value of their time. And so, like, for instance, I've worked with, MTV stars, and, some of them put together a quick image and some put together a video, and obviously we price that differently. But the ones that we, fairly evaluated gave us the best return, gave us the best quality content. So, my whole philosophy is relationships and how to
really represent and align the brands. That's the most important thing.
A lot of the brands, fairly, but again, to, kind of segueing back into, I wanted to say this earlier, kind of segueing back into, the how much do you make? I think a really good question for, you to ask back is, how many hours do you think I take to make this money?
$2 an hour, right?
Yeah, it comes out. Yeah, it comes out.
Well, there's a value of like how much you make and how much you're worth, right?
Yeah.
And those are slightly different. And different content creators do different things. Like there's one, The Delicious on Instagram. She's just a photo. It's not a video. It's not, right? But the photo is these intricately like sculpted food and these platters that take a day to put together, and 12 hours of production work just to get one image out of it, right? And so she charges accordingly, and she gets paid for that kind of money because that's what it's worth, and the brands that go after her are looking for that high level of execution. And there's also just like someone's like, look at a selfie with my t-shirt, and that might have a different type of value. So in that scenario, you're looking at, okay, well, that's a more based on how much of the audience is there, how many views did it get, and it's just a media value. It's your raw exposure value versus your creative value versus your production value, or even conversion value. And so there's different parts of the equation.
Well, how do you get like a live stream contract? Like Facebook Watch is now stepping in to try to be like your mobile TV, so to speak, to be your Netflix for everywhere in its own right, and it's actually starting to gain some traction, and they certainly have the global traction. For you, like from Tiny Sponsor, any of your clients, are they on Facebook Watch? How is that business model? Because you get a contract and you're paid to produce, is that correct? Yeah,
so usually when we have sponsors come to us, they are looking for a package that one of our creators has made. So for example, like our KBC, you guys have your channel, the gaming channel you have.
What is it called?
It's
so we have a gaming channel with a couple other friends. It's called the Doppelgamers. Yeah. It's very, very new. Actually just started with some sponsorships the Tiny Sponsor was able to procure for us. And but it was according to the value of the time.
Yeah, and so you have a lower follow-up. It's a brand new channel, but they're doing a really cool video where you're reviewing a game, and that package is priced and set up that you guys set, and then brands are going to buy that. Now on the other side of the spectrum, you have someone like Granny Potty Mouth, who's on Facebook Watch. Who's a Facebook Watch premier creator, and she has millions and millions of fans. And in that scenario, she's saying, okay, I do these videos too. It's a much higher price point, but there's an extra cost associated with one. You can do a series of videos, you don't have to just one, and because she is a premier Facebook Watch creator, there's going to be more distribution and more numbers, so there's more value in her package. And so from a brand point of view, definitely what they're looking for. Like if they're looking for very niche target and maybe some more brand content creation, they might go for one. If they're looking for raw numbers, they might go for the other. And there's also a happy medium depending on the creator.
Well, one of the things from my perspective and from the influencer code, and it's really, Amanda Russell, my partner, even said this on another panel today. Influencer marketing is a tactic, not a strategy, just like social media is a tactic, not a strategy. And what we are finding is that brands are getting smarter about this, are starting to understand the value of an endorsement, of a testimonial. An influencer can say things that they can't. They could say, oh, I'm too fat and I need to lose weight, and so I tried this thing and it worked. And you're going to trust them more than if you get an ad slapped at you that says you're going to lose weight. So they're starting to recognize that and look into it. But when you first get started, how do you start aligning yourself with the network to answer those problems, to get that platform? And I'm not sure where I want to start. I guess I'll start with you, Alex.
I think that's probably better fit for Mike, because he's really been behind the brand side.
Or maybe even Jana. Both of you.
I think it's just, when you're starting out, it's all about collaboration and, being a part of the networking and being a part of other channels to get the exposure. And then once you build
So when you
your-
say networking with other channels, maybe give a scenario of what that means.
Sure.
Oh, collaboration.
Yeah,
Like, you guys
it's
do
like
it all
a
the time.
collaboration. So like.
Oh, collaborations. I see what
yeah,
you're saying.
so,
Yeah.
so
we're-
these guys are cameos in other videos, and
Yeah.
if they're tagged, and people then cross over to their channel, and that's just added exposure for them to start building their channel,
audience.
their
So
audience. Yeah.
We're like in a weird place right now where we are cameoed in like literally like 100 other viral videos, but our actual socials like slowly gaining numbers. So like speaking of Granny Potty Mouth, like 2 years ago almost, I like cold emailed her because she had a viral video, had like 80 million views or something crazy about vegetarian turducken called a tofuckin. And I was like, you're fucking hilarious. I'm a vegetarian. Vince is gluten free. I just found out you live in LA. Not to be weird, but if you feel like working with some small, ducks, then here we are. And she was like, I like what you do. No matter what numbers we were at, and now we're her grandsons on like every video. Like every time she cooks something, she pulls us on camera and we eat it. And then there's a bunch of other videos and stuff. Like we also do music collaborations with the comic book channel called NerdSync. So far, that has taught us so much about collaboration because we come from like so much of the creative standpoint. It sounds like a kind of a cliche, but like we know so little about business. Most of the business we know is like offshoot of what we hear Mike talk about like on the side. But like we got to be friends with the host of NerdSync, and then we just got to be actual friends. And then something came up in a conversation. That'd be a great idea for a video. We spent like 3 months scripting it, writing it, producing the video, and that was the best collaboration with cross audiences that we wouldn't have thought of because we're a music channel, but these comic book geeks are like, we love what you do.
But you said something kind of important because you said it took you 3 months when you got to churn every week. Like it takes away from you creating your music, or it takes away from you doing what you're an artist. It's not like or like doing food preparation or things that you have to plan for, and you don't have the staff and you got to do it. So it's taken away from your art. So how do you balance having talent and giving fans what you want and still be consistent? Because consistency is
I
key.
want to comment actually on that and on what you just said. So there's the growth of your account, and then there's a definition of who you are as a creator. I think those are two different things. When you're looking at brand alignment and why a brand should choose you, it should never come from the brand, to be honest. Like, it should never be a brand saying, oh, I've found your YouTube channel and I want to work with you. They don't know you. They don't know your audience. They don't know who you are. You know your audience. You know what you create. And I think the more clear you can get in defining what that is, like what I like about Doppelgamers is that Doppelgamers is a very specific channel. You guys do these retro games, it's comedy, you have when you see it, even in the artwork, you get a feel of what it is. And so when a brand sees that, they're like, oh, that fits or it doesn't fit with what I do.
Yeah, we're very not safe for work, so if you're easily offended, don't check the gaming channel out.
But the thing is that you guys are artists, and that's where a tiny sponsor or a network comes in because they do the homework.
Yeah, and so
Theoretically, the brand comes and says, I have this buyer persona who has this age and this, and I want this and I want that. And you say, oh, this is great. I need this musician, or I need this act, or this situation.
a good platform, a good MCN, a good agent is going to look at you and say, great, you're creative, or if you are your own agent, right? If you're doing your own sales, they'll figure out, okay, well, this is what you do. This is what you were specialized in. This is what you are known for. This is the type of things that if you do, it's always going to be who you are. So whether it's Granny Potty, they're always doing like a how-to video, but like with her own style, that's like a little bit, Granny Potty Mouth, right? Yeah. And they'll be able to present it to a brand where that's going to be completely aligned, but it comes from defining who the talent is and what they do best. And you have to have that figured out.
And the talent has to know that.
Yeah, the talent or the platform has to present to the brand, because otherwise the brand's shooting darts, right? It'll be the less they do that, the more generalized it is, the less the result's going to be. And then they go to the collaboration, which is like, oh, cool, if you know you're really good at music and you guys are kind of geeky and gamer, then like a NerdSync collaboration makes perfect sense.
It was weird. It never occurred to us until it happened. And then when the subscribers were coming over from NerdSync to our channel, they were checking out all our stuff, and they aligned perfectly with like our channel vision. Like, we don't do cover songs because we're not good at it and we don't want to do it. And those guys came over and they're like, we love your original music, and they can continue to support our original music, and we're like, we couldn't really.
Because we're finding you for what you do specifically, and that's the key thread, right? Whether it's a brand collaboration or whether it's another creator or growth collaboration, there has to be a defined position. That way, the right audience can find you for that reason.
And I think that's kind of like how you began this panel, is saying that you're starting to learn about influencer marketing, your brands are getting smarter, and I think something like Tiny Sponsor kind of bridges that gap to a certain degree.
helps fill the gap.
Yeah, because like I think,
how would you know? Because you're telling your story and people like it.
Well, I mean, you hear some like uncle or some dad at like the dinner table like, "Oh, social media is the future," and like people are starting to actually realize what that means because they just hear this blanket statement because the viewership is so high on social media and there's so much like attention being spent. I mean, Instagram's engagement is off the charts. Nothing can even come close, and I think brands are starting to slowly figure out what that means, but it's not just the viewership, it's the personality. It's that, like you said earlier,
engagement. It's not the number,
it's the engagement. That's kind of what Mike is saying. If I was to promote CoverGirl, my conversion would be terrible. If any of you are for CoverGirl, don't give me a brand deal. So I mean, you're seeing like they're musicians. They have a defined kind of niche in what they do. A recent example that I think was really effective, even though the brand has undergone a lot of drama recently, is a lot of people on YouTube have been feeling burnt out. A lot of the kind of lifestyle guys are feeling burnt out. They spend a ton of time and they're having these like mental breakdowns because social media has consumed every ounce of their life and they don't know what to do.
Well, and also they're not an actor. So they're not Daniel Radcliffe playing Harry Potter and go home and then they're Daniel Radcliffe. They are 24/7.
Yeah,
that character.
And what happens with this is these influencers are coming forward about this. They're like, yo, I'm going to take some time off YouTube. Yo, I'm going to talk about this subject. I'm going to be depressed on camera. I'm going to whatever that may be.
Yeah, Selena just
And so this company, like online therapy company, reached out and says, yo, we're going to give you a brand deal and you're going to get a percentage of each sale. And that's a company called BetterHelp. You guys may have heard of it, but the pair between the brand and the influencer couldn't be better because here's an influencer coming out, hopefully being truthful about stuff they're going through. They're not okay. They're feeling burnt out. They don't know who to talk to. And they start off their video, hey guys, if you're also feeling that way, go to betterhelp.com and get online therapy for much cheaper. And that pair between an influencer...
But wait a minute, Alex, that can be a slippery slope because it could look like a gimmick. So, I mean, you really got to be really burned out. You can't just go, oh, I think I'll do that because then I can, because people will see through it. And I'm just saying you have to be careful if you're going to do something that's going to... Because you are showing your life, and like you were sharing that you had a problem with your manager, and maybe you've come across this, Jana, I don't know.
Well, not with our manager. Our manager took care of a problem for us.
With a stalker.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the intimacy between like having an influencer being, hey, I'm okay.
Tired.
Here's the solution to a problem that you might also be having. That kind of intimate relationship, I think, is going to create a really high conversion and a genuine relationship and a positive brand image.
Believe me, if it's true, you're going to get the emotional connection. That's what it's all about. It's about being able to really, truly, and you have to be willing as an influencer to show it all. You got to go in your sweatpants and all, and
if that's your brand, right? Like I think that's the point is what you're saying.
Yeah, content and context are important.
It's context, yeah, exactly. It's like I do food and beverage, and most of my shots, like I do like custom cocktail recipes. I could do a custom cocktail recipe every single day, and it can always be something no one's going to care. Maybe this is still awesome because it's aligned with what I'm doing. The idea of alignment is really key, but it's still tuned to. Like what works well for one brand with one influencer is going to work. Like for that same one for a different brand will not work. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to look at both sides of the equation. It's like is not just the numbers. Forget the numbers. Even forget the engagement. It's the qualitative stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, is their style the same? Is what do they embody? Is that the same? Is what do they communicate? Is that the same? And so we had one brand. Somebody I talked to here actually. It was like they had this eco-friendly, vegan, apparel brand, and they work with a lot of celebrities that has zero conversion. I'm like, yeah, because celebrities have a massive audience. They're not specific, and those celebrities aren't about what you're about. But there are other influencers and creators who are all about like living a zero carbon lifestyle or vegan lifestyle or whatever, and their followers follow them for that reason. So for that brand, that's going to do really, really, really well. But for another brand, it won't. And so it's that both-sided alignment that has to happen.
And
I wanted to ask.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you. So, so you mess up, because you're only human, because you're having a breakdown, because whatever, I don't know, you can't even film Spider-Man in New York because everything's filmed with your, cell phone or whatever, everything is so transparent. So, and something happens and you're drunk or you slip or you do something that looks bad, and from a PR perspective, from a reputation management perspective, what do? Cry. It's not. It depends on the talent.
Reputation management is that 3 a.m. text message, phone call on a Saturday night. It can be really easily fixed, or it can just be detrimental. So I'm sure a lot of you remember the whole exposure, and that's when FTC started to really take hold, when, you know, the Scott Disick's of the world started posting whoever created their content, they started posting the full email. So it said, you need to post this at 4 p.m., then the copy, and it was all these notes, and people were like, oh, that's okay. And that was a huge deal, because that's essentially one of the reasons why the FTC cracked down, and you had to say sponsored, you know, ad, you have to put the paid collaboration in your post, because a lot of the snafus came from not being transparent, right?
Yeah, I think you have to own it right away.
Right, I mean...
You don't hide and just do nothing either.
Right.
I like the transparency now, because before we were doing social media, when we were playing gigs out on the East Coast, there's a specific venue, and if you've talked to me later, I'm very transparent about which venue this is, and I hate it. But they booked us for this gig, and we had to have X number of tickets sold or whatever to not owe them money. And then the ticket site broke 2 days into ticket sales. So their solution was people should come to the box office. I'm like, I don't know if you know, it's like 2015. That doesn't happen. And so we announced on like what socials we had, like Twitter and stuff, like, hey, ticket sales are broken online, so it's not just you. You have to come to the box office. The venue didn't like that at all. So they wrote copy for us, and they said that like we were under like legal things or whatever. We couldn't talk about them in a negative light. So for the next 3 weeks of ticket sales, they wrote copy for us on our social medias every day. And I loathed that. So ever since like social media's been like bigger and things have been more transparent, I'm like, I welcome the hashtag sponsored, whatever, you know, like.
I mean, from the brand strategy standpoint, when you hire an influencer, you do not want to take away their originality and their creativity. So you have to, from a brand, you give them guidelines, right? Things that cannot be in the content, things that should be in the content, some general talking points. But ultimately, if you are creating the content for them and you're not hired to run their social media, you are taking away, one, their credibility, two, their voice. Even if you tried to mimic their voice, it's not you, right? And also, you're taking away their creativity.
You're limiting away
most important though, your brand trust.
Valuable. Yeah,
exactly.
what makes them valuable. Like if
Exactly.
if you're gonna do your own messaging, your own content, go buy a Facebook ad. It'll perform better than trying to force your message on someone who that's not who they are. Because then their audience is like, what the hell is this? And it's just not gonna work.
But I do want to separate influencer from brand, because I could have a brand voice and talk about Cheez-Its and do Cheez-Its social media, right? That's a whole different type of content management than influencer. So I just want to
still a persona though, right? Like,
right,
so whether it's a
persona,
persona or a brand persona, but it would same thing if another brand collaboration came to work with Cheez-Its and then told them to post something in a different voice, it would have the same negative
fall.
effect.
Yeah, and then you would go into some
Why don't we take a look just for fun? I have a fun video of these guys to give you an idea. Just because the thing that's interesting, Alex has a lot of experience, has actually helped a lot of people already to do this. Because I want to know, after you watch this video from you, Mike, how do we come to you and get you to help us? So we'll start with looking at them. Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was trying to make it full screen. So we'll do this again in a second, maybe. Okay, hold on. There we go. Let's do it again.
Oh, while she's getting that
They were
ready.
paid for that, by the way.
Yeah.
That tiny part. That was
They're tiny
that was
sponsor.
it.
That was it.
There's a little bit of context. This was the first proper sponsor deal we ever got, and it was through Tiny Sponsor, and it was with Sundance Film Festival.
Yeah, so that'll kind of.
They were looking for stories of like LA musicians and artists like struggling to make it. And we're like, yes.
Okay, here we go.
How much footage do you need?
Like our life.
Yeah, they were like 1 minute. We're like, we'll try to make it work.
Can you see that? You can't see it? Really?
Whatever.
Sounds great, though.
Maybe cancel the full screen thing.
There's a. Oh, hold on.
Oh, this is
can hear
great
it.
out of context.
There's a reason why I'm a writer.
I mean, they can do it live, right?
Oh yeah.
There's a, okay, I don't know.
That did
Okay,
happen.
we'll skip that. We'll just keep going.
So I mean, but to kind of summarize, Sundance had this need. They had an LA Film Festival, right? And their LA Film Festival is very different than their Sundance Film Festival. Oh, actually, it's a setting with the full screen on the computer. It's not the projector. So their whole thing was that LA has a very unique audience. The films they were featuring had a very unique, like these were LA-based directors, and they were like, we want the LA story. We literally want to attract the creatives in LA to come see these LA filmmakers who film most of these films in LA. And they wanted to have very different audiences. They're like, we need the Hollywood crowd, we need like the music crowd, we need all these different crowds. And so we made a list of all the audiences they felt were relevant to the films. And then basically found creators that's who they were. These were the people living this life. And we said, listen, we don't really want to, we're not trying to advertise Sundance per se. I mean, that's the end goal. But really, Sundance and this film festival is about telling the LA story. So what's your LA story? So then we asked every creator to say, make a video for Instagram and just tell your story. At the end of it, just say, hey, this is our LA story. Do you want to see other LA stories? Come see more of these stories at Sundance.
But wait, when you said you asked your creators, where's that database from?
So it was for people that were on our platform. So we found people
Tiny
that were
Sponsor.
on Tiny Sponsor.
You mean you went and found out, you searched out, Tiny Sponsor looked for people as a talent scout to say, will you create this? And they pay for it.
Yeah, so we're a marketplace. So basically we're kind of like Etsy for content creators. So they come to our website, they create a profile, they tell us what they do and what they want to price it at. But it probably gives us a bunch of data sets. So that says, okay, cool, now I know RKVC does music, they're a little geeky, they're a little gaming, they're a little bit of this, and I can then, when a brand comes to the site or comes to us, we can then filter according to that.
So you're only as good as your SEO, your meta tags to a certain
Well,
degree?
we pull a lot of other data, we ask a lot of key questions, and then we update that both through pulling external data, and also our team will augment that as well. So it's a kind of
So
combined
you're going to do
process.
this for Sundance, and you go into your database, and you find the people that match it based on kind of like a dating in a way, but more deep than that, deep than that. And then do they pay for their creations?
Yeah, so what happens is, so in this case,
They
we're
kind of like, it's like an audition.
Sort of. Like with RKVC, we said, okay, we need a musician who had a YouTube audience who was in LA. So we would literally put LA location, musician, YouTube, and then they came up, and we're like, great. They have a cool look, we like their vibe. And then they have these video pricings for their video packages, and we made a custom offer based on that
Value
pricing,
at that
value,
time.
yeah. And we said, we don't want to do your music, 10 people in Guitar Center video. We want to do a video about you, same length, same everything, but it's going to be a different topic. So we made that offer.
So the process of doing the video so that it was to their spec was on Tiny Sponsor. There's a communication thing between us and the brand, which was something that was a nice distillation for us, because since we're not familiar with the business side, we would just submit them like an early draft of the video, and they were like, love this, could you shave off a second here? Also, we don't like the way the Next Fest is worded here, just because of our internal policies and stuff. We're like, sure, change this, And then by the time it posted, it was like both parties were like very happy.
Yeah, and the brand can choose that when they check out. They can say, okay, here's my campaign brief, here's what I need. Do I want approval or not? And we actually recommend not. Generally speaking, like, unless you have a brand policy, we recommend them to let the creator do what they should be doing as a creator.
So Alex, so you work with Tiny Sponsor, and Jana, you work with MCNs. So tell me, for you, in the example of you as a musician, different than them, they have a, like you said, they have like a very specific brand voice, not that you don't, but how is your relationship with networks? Like you had a good analogy also about like a music deal. Like when you're making a deal, it's like making a record deal.
Yeah.
So maybe just walk through the process of your experience when it comes to deal making and
so I would say both of those are kind of two questions.
Separate questions. Yeah.
So I would say tackling first, I think the MCN thing you kind of recognize. So as a musician, I have I wouldn't say a unique perspective, but a comparison. I think MCN's record labels, a lot of times they carry negative reputations, and I don't really think that's necessary. It's just you have to be reasonable with yourself. An MCN is essentially somebody that can help manage your channel, give you more resources to create better content, and in the end, bring in more brand deals. And a record label is kind of the same thing. They front your resources to create the music, and they take a percentage of that. That being said, I think a lot of creators are very idealistic, and they get really hooked on getting signed because it gives them some sort of value, of some validation. And I think that none of them are really bad, but there's a sense of risk management. If you are a prolific artist or you're a prolific YouTuber with a massive engaged audience, an MCN is definitely going to approach you because they're going to say, okay, well, we can make money off of this creator, and in return, we can provide them the assets to make something more incredible. But if you're a small creator and you haven't really found your vision, if you haven't really found your fan base, you're not going to benefit as much with those resources, and you're giving up probably a larger percentage in which you won't recoup, so it just doesn't make sense. The second part, you said, are you talking about my relationship with Tiny Sponsor, or my relationship with like brands that I've worked with?
Well, I'm curious what you do with, because I know that you do stuff with them because you do have this experience and you just have a knack for it. So I'm curious what you do for them.
Yeah, so my relationship with Tiny Sponsor is still budding, and we're still kind of figuring that out. But one of the main things is I work heavily within Instagram users. So I'm associated with a lot of other Instagram stars on the internet, and I also help grow them too on my own, but that's kind of its own little thing.
Are you like a scout?
I mean, you could say that's kind of my role with the company. So I basically tell Instagram stars who, they've got this massive following, let's make your vision a little bit more clearer. What can you offer to a brand? What makes you special? Why do your fans like and appreciate you? And how can we translate that relationship to a brand? How can we better define who you are? And how can we find a marketplace to get you capitalization? Because a lot of these guys have such strong influence and power, but some of them are broke. And I'm like, if you figure out what it is that you clearly offer to a company, what your defined vision is, you really are a valuable asset. So I help these influencers create that vision, and then Tiny Sponsor bridges the gap essentially. And I can be like,
and does the agency work, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. So it saves you the grace of having to be signed by an agency because you don't have to work with Tiny Sponsor.
Well, how does it compare with and I'm going to turn this just so that Jonna gets a chance to speak, but how does it compare with a full screen or an in-house complete, they create, they develop, they do? How does that compare? Because you can go and get a full package. They do what you're saying. It's not segmented. You don't have your manager.
And they're all different pieces in the ecosystem, right? Like MCNs are different from an agent, which is different from Tiny Sponsor. They're different ways to approach it. Like we may be the good fit for a lot of people. We may not be the good fit for some people.
No, and that's what I'm asking. What are the alternatives, basically? I'm just looking to find out. It's nothing against Tiny. I think Tiny Sponsor is great because it gives a lot of people good trampoline opportunity and keeps them working and keeps them being able to practice and get better, and it helps you. I mean, it's a good thing, but I'm curious about what the alternatives are. Let's say you start becoming really macro.
There's MCN, there's agents, there's talent agencies. So, sorry.
But when do you decide that?
You're right. No, hitting the nail on the head. Go for it.
So MCNs are great. I wish we have MCNs that use us as well. If you're a creator, you should have multiple streams of revenue, and I think having a good agent is going to be totally something you should do. If your style is defined, you have a substantial audience, you know what you do, kind of what Alex just said, you know all that, then have an agent take that, package it, and go for the really big long-term deals. That's what an agent is really good for.
That's really, like you said, it's like a musician or an actor. Yeah. I mean,
it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, MCN is just an MCN or an agent is going to be a lot more hands-on, and they're going to really be a big part of your growth and career. And Tiny Sponsor detaches, I would say, pretty much entirely from that, and is a platform for the creator to make the decision to have a relationship with the brand.
Yeah, we're toolkit, but on the MCN side, now there are also really bad MCNs. There's also really bad agents that don't do anything, and then you have exclusivity, that you have a percentage of everything you make, and that's bad.
So you're essentially penalized.
Yeah.
For that.
So the best MCNs I think are very additive. They don't require exclusivity until they've proven themselves and that they're a good fit. And then the bad ones, after all up front, they don't return, they lock you in. A lot of MCN agents use us where, because they are managing the talent, they'll manage the profile on our site for their talent, and that's fine too. We're just a toolkit, we're another sales channel. But the biggest thing goes back to, I think, is whether if you're the creator, know everything Alex said, know what you do, and then have the agent figure out how that maps to a business.
I see.
Or if you would figure out yourself, then you can self-serve through Tiny Sponsor. Either of those things work. The only area where I see MCNs being a really big value is if they're doing their own production. So Fullscreen does this, or merchandising, other things where it helps you as a talent build other streams of revenue. And that's a really huge area that I think that's a good agent. Now you got
Or like
into
if
the
you have a
agent,
celebrity,
know.
if you're a celebrity, you're already kind of known and you need to build upon it. That's where it makes sense.
And so it's business development for you as a business,
Right.
which is different than
Yeah. So listen, we're pretty much done, but I do want to give you, thank you guys very much. It goes so quick. You guys stay through the whole thing. Thank you so much. I hope that you're getting the value that you need. But you might have some questions, and so we'll take 2 or 3 questions from you if you have anything you want to ask these guys. It's late. It's 5.
I want to ask her a
traffic.
question, actually. Can I?
Who? Yeah, you can ask a question.
So I mean, so you're telling me you did like you're building influencer and marketing for a PR agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that kind of an interesting idea, interesting thought, because PR isn't like influence and social is not just PR. It's not just content. It's not just performance marketing. It's a kind of a combination of all those things, and you're kind of in a unique role where you're having to like bolt on and expand a PR's business to do that. And so like, how does that integrate? Like, how is that?
First of all, it's interesting. That's like the first thing I have to say. I know my role very specifically. I know influencer and I know social. And I have done PR. And like you were saying, they are all sort of under an umbrella. They all sort of kind of wash into each other. Ask me your question again.
So I think there's a trend where PR is like, oh, influence is under PR, or like someone's like performance marketing.
Right.
It's got to convert only, and that's it. But the reality is, it's neither of the two. It's both.
Right, and so that's actually something that I'm trying to separate out from, the CEO of the company who built this brand, this PR brand from the bottom up. This is his baby, and he wants to. And he's so smart and he has so many creative ideas, but they don't always work for influencer and for social. And that's the hardest thing you have to break away from, because while they are under the same umbrella, they are significantly different. They all utilize the same tools and whatnot, but influencer can be campaign, or it can be, brand ambassadorship where it's an extended campaign. I mean, it's not just like a one-off article, or they're different. So it's just a lot of education.
Well, it takes relationship building to really make it effective. So
yeah.
But does anyone outside? Thank you, Mike, though, for asking that. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions? We're going to stay here, but yeah, please.
I wanted to invite this gentleman in the middle to speak, because he hasn't had his chance.
I was going to say, he started saying things a couple times. I was going to.
Speak on what? Yeah. Do you have a question?
Or what were you going to say earlier?
Who are you?
Well, earlier I was going to state the thing that was missing about the collabs, especially if some of you out there are looking to collab to gain your audiences, because we were talking about the collab and then like the end of it, like getting the subscribers, but we didn't talk about like the middle. And really, it's about the circular collab. So like at the end of that NerdSync video, the host, Scott, had a video that we had done that he's pointing the audience to. So, and end of his video, you click on our video, it goes back and forth. At the end of our video is his video again. So it's a constant loop. And I think that's like the key to the collaboration.
And that's kind of how your gaming thing came along, right?
Oh, the gaming was like a whole separate weird
Okay.
beast thing.
Okay,
But
never
there was
mind
a,
that. We're ending, so I won't let you.
There was a question real quick that Cynthia had posed like on our call, like about how, so recently we did a video with the composer of the X-Men theme song.
Oh, yeah.
And the short version of that was like, so this might be really too naive because we're in the creative side, but we're like, if we just make good shit, like hopefully like eventually like the right things will come along. So with Ron Wasserman, he's a legend. He wrote the Power Rangers theme song as well. He saw the rest of our content and like Granny was like, nah, I like what you guys do. And so we agreed to the collab, and hopefully that'll just keep building, you know? So kind of part of that circular thing, like we don't want to sell out just to make a buck today. Like we try to do stuff like we genuinely, like we actually
do what you like.
We became friends with this dude, and he's actually like a mentor. Like he
That's
asked
so
us
good.
for music to help, like he wants to like help us with our music. I'm like, we need to get to that
It's like
level.
being on The Voice offline.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else? I think this is
The
a good
audience
time.
is, are we mostly like, are you guys mostly creators? Are you brands? Are you
Yeah.
agencies? I'm curious like what the makeup is.
Who's influencing?
If you're a creator or an influencer, raise your hand. Okay, a lot of
whole
those.
room.
And then agency side, or what type of agency? That's a kind of full spectrum. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, does anyone have any questions on anything related as a creator? These creators have I think RKVC
I'm just
is
curious,
really
like,
great.
okay, so you're an influencer. What's your topic if you're an influencer? Oh,
Yeah.
So, I've heard about like ratios when you're creating content and you're curating your Instagram feed specifically. So I think Instagram, for me, I believe that's blowing up, and that's really where I want to put my time. And I heard about this like 8-1-1 ratio. Like 8 posts should be adding value, 1 should be marketing, and 1 should be personal.
so the question is 8-1-1 value. 8 should be 8 personal posts, 1.
So the question is, yeah, so sorry. So my question for you, maybe Alex, since you're like a big Instagrammer and you have a big following, do you have is it formulaic for you where you're like, okay, I want to do 8 posts that add value, 1 that's personal, 1 that's marketing, how do you structure that? How do you structure like the posts that you're doing, and is there forethought into that?
So you want to repeat the question? So that-
Yeah, so she's kind of asking like how often are you saying like at how many posts should there be like an advertiser kind of post, and how much should be like organic content?
Twofold. The first part is there forethought into almost like a formula to the content ratio, the type of content and the ratio of it? And if so, what is your formula?
I mean, I really don't have one, to be truthfully honest. I mean, I try to like follow like a theme per se, but I slack on it all the time, truthfully. I don't like. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing to have a formula and to have a mindset. I think if you ask any creator, regardless of platform, they're going to tell you their pride and joy is consistency and schedule. They're going to tell you that every time. Consistency, schedule, 9 to 5. Like create a schedule, because even though flexibility is this luxurious thing, it's also the death of us, because the creators that have the flexibility a lot of times sit on their butt and don't put a video up for 3 months, and then they lose their entire fan base. Yeah. So I think that creating some sort of consistent schedule is vital, super important. That specific one isn't really one that I'm familiar with, and I definitely don't go to that extent. But if you're consistently gaining followers and you're promoting content that's hitting Explore feed, you're getting exposure, you're creating an engaged fan base, then I think definitely take advantage of that. And Instagram's algorithm is going to prioritize that and keep that like flow going. Instagram loves consistency, and they love momentum. That's really, really big. You're going to get favored a lot through that, so I'd highly suggest that if that is what you're currently experiencing.
Every creator has a different cadence. Consistency is important. The nature of your content is going to be varied on what you're known for, what your followers follow you for. So any change in that's going to definitely impact, especially Instagram, will impact your exposure temporarily, but it'll normalize. So like the 8-1-1, it depends. Like if someone's following you like for your lifestyle, and 8 of those posts are your life, and then one's very personal and one's like a very commercial, if they're following you for their life, then those 8 should be the core content. What we found is that every creator has 2 to 5 types of content they produce, and you can say there's like of all my posts, I post on like everything I post falls into 2 to 5 types of pieces of content, and if you do more than that, you're kind of all over the place. If you do less than that, then it's fine if you're super specialized, but it leaves no flexibility, and you want to find that balance. In terms of the ratio, it depends on It depends on what you train your audience to be used to, especially with Instagram, because the algorithm is individualized, right? It's looking at weighting on you, on who engages with your content and why. Like I know, for example, okay, so there's kind of 2 ways to approach it. One way is, what is your topical content that you're known for, and you want to be known for, and have a regularity there, and then make sure there's a small ratio that you allow to be like commercial, so you can make some money off of it, but also make sure that commercial stuff is still aligned with what your things are. So someone should be sponsoring those 3 types versus creating a 4th type. That's just for commercial, right? But I would actually, instead of looking at topic, I'd also look at like purpose. There might be, I think of it as an ongoing narrative. A really easy analogy is a magazine. When you look at an old school magazine, there's sections that you come back for every month. It's the same idea. So, and those have different purposes. Some of them for education, some of them are for sharing your personal life, some of them are for whatever. RKVC, you guys do you have a very set schedule where you're doing X amount of videos a week. You're also doing a live cast every Sunday that you never fail for. And each one has a different purpose. One's for engagement, one is for your creative output, one is for potentially commercial. Like, what's your mix?
They kind of complement each other, because our live streams have allowed us to communicate with our audience. So we actually recently laxed on the post schedule, because we felt like we were rushing content out instead of like doing the best we could on something. So, and especially with brand deals, we're like, hey guys, we're gonna put a video out to hopefully get new subscribers. So if you see a really weird, like, kind of like video,
So,
that's what that is.
You know what, you guys? It's 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we
We
could
love
talk
paddle.
about, we love the subject, so,
Is it
we can stand
drinking
up here
time?
all day.
Come find us afterwards.
But
I'll
yeah,
lead the chips
come,
and salsa.
let's stick around. We're just going to let our people go, so to speak.
Real quick.
Good luck to all of you. We'll see you online, maybe, And I am going to do the shameless sign up for www.theinfluencercode.com. Get your 8 bulletproof strategies for influencer marketing and use it as a hub because you can. So we're here for you.
If there's
Anyway,
questions,
thank you.
we'll be hanging out, so.
Well, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and ask.
Oh yeah, I want to talk to you guys afterwards. If you should follow her Instagram account. We follow you guys both. I've been putting it together as we've been sitting up here. Like
I
know
feel
you
a
guys.
collaboration
Yeah,
coming.
So
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks, panelists. You were awesome.